Morning, everyone, or afternoon if you're here in Europe. Kenneth Lang. We're doing our second week of LinkedIn. Last week we talked about or wanted to talk about the LinkedIn year in review, but of course we went off on a tangent, which is always a good thing. We're going to talk today about some of the changes that we'd like to see in 2022, as well as some of the other changes that may be coming up. I know that a couple of people have reached out to me and you, Kevin, about some of the things that they notice on their profile. But just as a means of introduction, David, Kevin, Rachel, Jack, why don't you introduce yourselves? Because I know who you guys are. I don't know if everyone else does. So I definitely want to start with you, David. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you for first having me on, Kenneth. So, resume, LinkedIn coach, really LinkedIn coach for job seekers. It's pretty easy. Being a job seeker is extremely hard, but for me, being able to tell somebody's story on their resume and really align their LinkedIn to attract recruiters. So that's what I am and what I do. Thanks.
Kevin, I know you, but
Kevin D. Turner, personal organizational branding, LinkedIn enthusiast since 05, and live it, love it, love to share it with everybody, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Rachel.
I'm Rachel Simon. I am in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm on the flip side from David, similar strategy, but I don't work with job seekers. So I'm going to work with the professionals who really are trying to, set up themselves up for success on LinkedIn, really kind of building their presence from the foundation of a great profile up through understanding their network and really having fun with content.
Hi, Jack.
Hey, so first, I think we have to acknowledge that Kevin looks amazing with being beardless. Not that he didn't look awesome and handsome and debonair but it's so interesting when you shave, because I find this myself, you kind of you look 10 years younger. Do you notice that, Kevin?
I didn't notice. I just noticed I looked really different. Like you'd wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and you'd be like, "Who's that in my bathroom?
Who's that guy? Who's that old guy I'm looking at in the mirror?" That's what happens to me. But I think I digress from your question, Ken. I'm sorry. You know what it is? Because when you did it, it looked like virtual reality on LinkedIn when you were showing the beard on and off. So that was kind of a really interesting experience that caught my eye. So I'm a senior contributor for Forbes. I write about leadership is my vertical, which means anything that's going on in the corporate world and as it relates to individuals and how it helps them with their job, with their career. Should they pivot to something new? What's hot? What's not? So I cover kind of that whole area. And also, I'm CEO, founder of Compliance Search Group, an executive search firm. Been doing this for now going on 25 years. And we place mid to senior executives on Wall Street, primarily compliance, legal risk, audit, and anti-money laundering people.
So it's great to have everyone here. And if everyone wants to, at some point, open up and put questions and the like in the chat, I just want this to be pretty free form. I know from my standpoint, and this has been a whole thing for years, one of the things I wish LinkedIn would do is communicate better. I mean, we have this again and again and again. I know we were all talking before the call about these different things that are being rolled out to different people, and I just don't understand why. I mean, maybe you can explain, Kevin, why they can't at least communicate that they're doing it. Forget about the rollout itself, but at least let people know what's coming up. So I'll open it up to the panel. Yeah,
it's a catch-22 if you think about it. We'd be like the Maytag repairmen, right? Who would want to talk to us if LinkedIn actually communicated? And it's something that happened at LinkedIn very early on in their culture, and that was let's let these things out slowly and fix them as we go, right? Until we're ready and enough of the population has it, and then we'll announce it. So normally when you see a LinkedIn announcement about a feature, you're like, that's 6 months old.
right.
I've had that for 6 months. And then the other half of people are like, wow, that's new. If they're not paying attention to somebody who's out there trying to dig this stuff up, they don't know. The reason, and this is, talking to some, I always call them insiders, right, that I know, was that when they announced it at a rollout, and the way they do rollouts is kind of staggered in waves, 5 waves, right? Timed smaller to larger. And that's to keep the platform from blowing up if it doesn't work, right? In that process, when they announced it early, because that first wave is very small, people then started to go to help and saying, well, where's mine? Where's mine? Where's mine? And help blew up. Help can barely handle a regular day on LinkedIn sometimes. And then you throw out a rollout like this. If they announced it and only 3% of the people had it, help goes down. And then help can help those who can't help themselves. So that's why it happened. That's part of the culture, you know. It's also part of the complexity of this site. It was never designed to do what it does today.
So, and Rachel, what would you like to see coming up in 2022? I mean, or things you'd like to, what's your dream? What's your resolution, if you will?
I think the biggest thing, and I think it's already happening, is there's going to be less manipulation by LinkedIn on the platform. And that is being driven by legislation here in the United States. The Bubble Filter Act, which looks like it's going to pass fairly soon, basically says that if you are a member on a site or user on a site, a platform that delivers any kind of information, news, that kind of stuff, if they use an algorithm to deliver that you have the option of having no algorithm. I want to be in control. I'm going to take control. And LinkedIn is already responding to it. That's where the subscriber alert, what we call the bell, right? That's where the bell came in. That's saying, here it is. We now are compliant with the Bubble Filter Act. We're still going to manipulate those who don't know, right? Those who don't pick the bell, we're still going to manipulate and make more money on those people. But for those who do know and want control, it is here. This is what it is. It's the bell. And
so Rachel,
more of that's happening.
Rachel, well, from your perspective, working with small business owners in a different way, are there things you'd like to see on LinkedIn, or predictions, or just like what you have any envision for the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Kevin was saying, I still want the bell. I don't have a bell. I think that I'd love to see a little bit more expedited rollout when these new features come up. Like, I know there was a lot of profile changes that some people have on theirs. I don't have those. I don't have the bell. I was one of the first people to get creator mode. Don't ask me why. I have absolutely no idea. But so I totally see there's like no rhyme or reason to why certain things roll out. I think that one of the challenges I see, and I'd be curious to, like, David, working with your clients as well. LinkedIn is so complicated, is in comparison to other social media platforms. So if I have a business owner and they want to put up an Instagram profile for their company, that takes a couple of minutes. I mean, it really doesn't require a lot. You can put a Facebook business page together pretty quickly. You can put, position yourself on your personal profiles on other platforms rather efficiently. But LinkedIn, there's so many components to it. They're so complicated. They're changing all the time. And so, I think I'd love to see like LinkedIn lean in a little more to those of us that know and are really passionate about the platform as their partners to help more people understand and utilize it. Obviously there's tons of tools. There's LinkedIn Learning. Those things are out there, but we're here to help. My goal is to help my clients use LinkedIn and do it the right way, right? And Ken and I have talked many times, as I have with Kevin, about no automation. I'm really against bots. Use those of us that kind of have the same value set that the platform does, because we're here to make it a positive and fun experience for everyone.
Great. What about you, David?
Well, I'm going to take a different approach. Just like inside an organization, employees want to be informed, right? I mean, we don't surprise employees. So, let us know of the subtle features. I mean, I was so embarrassed more than a few weeks ago. I was doing a video call with a client, and we were in the work experience, and I was saying, hey, turn this off if you're, notify network. And it was normally on the bottom and I couldn't find it. Like I was struggling, and sure enough, they had moved it up to the top. But come on, let us know. People just want to be informed, even if it's bad news, just like in an organization. If things are changed, just let us know. I understand that maybe some things aren't, maybe it's just, look, they can mass email everybody. Come on, we know that. Just tell us a little bit of some of the changes, right? Again, and then, stay tuned for more, again, I think and for those that are using the platform daily, if not just, every minute, come on, give us a little bit there so we can, help our clients. Yes, although what I'm about to say might put us out of business, but I mean, come on, LinkedIn, can you have some tutorials or something like why you should be, like what you should do to increase this on your page, right? Because I talk to clients and like, oh my gosh, I did featured section. What's that? What can I share, right? So I think that the platform has to be easier to use because most people still don't know, and job seekers don't know what they don't know about, what they can do on LinkedIn. And I know over the last year, LinkedIn has been doing some advertising, and for job seekers and TV and other social media regarding the what to do on the platform. But still, the perception of LinkedIn to people that don't know it, it's a place to park your resume or a place for recruiters. Why would I go to this boring platform? But as we all know, we build relationships on LinkedIn. So we need to see more of that if LinkedIn really wants to grow. Basically 800 million users, or close enough. LinkedIn should be a lot bigger. And when all of us succeed on LinkedIn, all of us succeed on LinkedIn. So again, a little bit of forward thinking again when thinking about the perception of LinkedIn still with so many others. And I don't know what that is. I know LinkedIn did that campaign a while ago trying to get others, LinkedIn users involved. I don't know where that campaign is. I applied, but I didn't get accepted. I don't know where they are with that, if it's still in the works or whatever. And maybe some of you know more about that, but LinkedIn needs to double down on the perception of the platform, in my opinion.
Jack, I want you to chime in also from a recruiter's perspective and maybe from a job seeker's perspective. Are there things that you'd like to see on the platform improved, or do you think there's things that people should do differently this year? Because you're looking at this from a different place than David, Kevin, and myself. And Rachel.
Yeah, I look at it very different, but I really use LinkedIn for two main purposes. One, for the recruiting. And the recruiting for me, it's pretty straightforward in terms of the platform because if I'm looking to recruit for, let's say, a head of anti-money laundering for a big bank, I could go and kind of conduct a search, and it's pretty relatively easy. So when it comes to that portion of it, it works well because that's a very simple kind of process that I'm doing. And LinkedIn is fantastic for that. Although it was much better before LinkedIn, where when you had a resume database, that was something proprietary I had when LinkedIn started. Now everybody has it, so it kind of levels the playing field. But in terms of finding people, or if I'm looking to maybe get a job order from a company, to be able to find, David, the CEO of XYZ company, and hit him up and say, hey, I see you're looking. Can I, do you need help? That part is really easy. For me, the pain point comes in terms of when, as a senior contributor for Forbes, when I post articles, and you folks know this way better than I do, what's frustrating is, you put a lot of effort and time in, you're sharing, you're giving, free information. It takes a long time to research, do an article, write, edit, all that, putting it out there that's very career oriented. And sometimes, get very few views. And to me, it's always surprising. And I question, the platform is built really to help empower workers and to help them in their careers and find jobs and events. So here I am writing these pieces specifically that resonates with the core audience. And instead of Now, maybe this is a little sour grapes on my part, so let's be fair. But you would think that somehow there might be some human intervention to say, wait a minute, this is material that should go out and be widely disseminated, because this is exactly why people are coming to the site for. And that I don't know why that happens. And obviously it's not just me. I mean, this is across the board, but that's one thing that's so questionable, because you would think you would want, if people who are creators, who are writers, who have videos that are exactly on target to what people are coming on to LinkedIn for, that maybe this is kind of naive, but it should be kind of really able to get it out there as much as possible, as opposed to, and I don't want to sound disparaging to anybody, but there's so many other people who so obvious they're just posting whether videos or content, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, but there's like no value there, but yet they'll get 10,000 likes, 10,000 hits. So to me, I don't know how you could reconcile that, because then what happens is, I think for the people who put a lot of time and effort into offering content, I'm going to say, why am I going to bother? I might as well try other platforms and go there. Does that make sense?
Can I
go ahead?
Sorry. Can I just real quick? So Jack, at times I'm guilty of that. Now, here's why though, because I realized a long time ago, in order for my posts of the value that I want, yes, sometimes I posted a set of video that's been shared 80 some times, just yesterday it has, I think, 40,000 views, but then now my other content is getting seen that's before that and after that. So I'm guilty of that only because I understand I kind of need to do that, unfortunately, to have my other content that I want seen to be seen. So yes, Jack, I'm guilty of that, and so many people are. So
David, is it more of, you have to kind of get the pulse of what people want, and not say, oh, you should, like, I'm kind of probably coming from a place of, oh, you should want this, which is wrong, instead of like, hey, what do people want to consume? So I'm better off finding out, hey, what kind of, whether article or video is really what they want, even if it's kind of soft, whatever it may be. But then once, I guess the algorithms work, once then they're liking and hitting it, then they'll take the other stuff that I do. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and still there is a message in my funny video that I will share, like the one I shared yesterday. There's still a message in the text.
Right.
I mean, and some value. It's just followed by a silly video to hopefully get maybe some more views. And it's a shame that we have to do that. And yes, it's a shame. I see valuable content there on LinkedIn all the time with one view and one like. Maybe it's for me. So yeah, I get it.
I have a general question. This has come up before in terms of I don't want to say self-promotion, but how do people feel about when someone is either in transition, if they put that, maybe not with the ring, but if they put down that they're in transition as a title, or if they create a job for that or something, in terms of letting themselves know, or should they let their content and their quote unquote brand speak for themselves? Because I get that question a lot, and there is no one right or wrong answer. So I'd be curious, starting with you, Rachel, what do you think?
I mean, I'm probably the wrong person to answer that question, since I don't do a lot of work with job seekers. And I would probably never recommend to somebody to do that, and have them instead lead with value of what it is they do and what it is, position themselves so that when someone like Jack comes across their profile, it's loud and clear why they are a potential right fit for whatever.
But what about if someone's going to have create a gig on the side? They're looking for work, but at the same time they want to create a gig on the side. They should put that on there, because a lot of people I work with are looking to start businesses and things. So
I think that's different than saying, seeking new opportunities as your headline, because okay, but what do you do? What kind of opportunity?
You are so right. You're so on the money, because that's a big frustration where you see somebody, and especially during the dark days of the pandemic, where you have the banner, open to work, and they're basically like, COVID, help me. And you kind of feel guilty. All right, I want to help, but how can I help if I don't know exactly what you're saying? I don't know what you do, what you want to do. Where do you want to work? Do you want remote? Do you want hybrid? How much money you're looking for? So it's like, wait, then I got to do all the heavy lifting to figure it out. Wait, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's the same as, I really focus a lot when I'm working with my clients on their headline, because even if someone has a position and they default, and this is something I wish LinkedIn would stop doing it. LinkedIn, stop defaulting when you add a new position, people so many times don't realize it changes your headline.
Well, you know why they do that?
Why?
Because it gives them more control. That line is so SEO heavy, right? Yeah. If you want to be found, you got to get the right message in there, because the whole thing, even though only the first 40 might be visual on most things you do out there, that whole line is direction to get back to you. It's what you bring to the table. You got to put it out there so that people know what you're doing. LinkedIn doesn't really want you in control of who finds you, because that's their business model, right?
So what
they
I
sell
want to do
that.
now,
And by defaulting to title at company, that's completely a best practice for them.
No,
what I want to do is I want to put some questions out there from the group, if that's okay, and we can just take turns answering them. I want to recognize so many great people here. And just Brenda, we talked about Kevin's beard already, or lack of beard.
Brenda,
I know Jerry Heyman really well. Comment on the value of LinkedIn groups. The subject that we all kind of talk about, and I'm just going to give my 2 cents. I hope that LinkedIn, if they ever do this LinkedIn video thing or Clubhouse thing, they use groups as the interface for that. Otherwise, I just don't see groups really having legs anymore, but I'd be curious to get feedback from other people or other thoughts.
I think it depends on how well they're managed. There's some that are really well managed and they seem to be effective, and others where people congregate and then there's nobody that's pushing that group forward. They tend to just exist.
And LinkedIn's not going to develop groups out. And the main reason, if you think about LinkedIn, it is based on the principle of 6 degrees of separation, right? You can meet anybody in the world within 6 handshakes. And that's why LinkedIn lets you look into the 3rd level, cuts you off. And if the 4th, 5th, and 6th want to find you, they got to pay, or you got to pay to find them. That's the business model. Groups circumvents that completely. If I join in a group, I can talk to anybody in that group. I can send them an invite. I can send them communication. I've now circumvented the revenue stream. That's why LinkedIn took away a lot of the tools that made groups really successful. One of the biggest ones, if you were the admin of a group, you could send a message out 10 times a day saying, hey, boom this, boom that. And you could make it worth your value to really pay the attention to the group that it needed to develop it. And so they took those things away. And that's the reason why it circumvents that 6 degrees of separation revenue stream. And so that I don't think they'll ever promote it. Now, audio only is a whole different other story. To me, that worked really well on Clubhouse at a time where the world needed to talk, right? You couldn't go to the pub, and it was kind of that place. You could go and Norm, right? And everybody knew you, and you could talk, and you could say things that you probably wouldn't say at work. You take that same environment and you stick it into LinkedIn, you are now saying, come in and have those pub conversations in the staff cafeteria. Oh, and by the way, that's Betty in HR, and that's Joe. He's listening. Go ahead, open up. It has a fail point because of that. Now, could it be used for other things, promotions, that kind of stuff? Yeah, but it'll never have the boom that Clubhouse had, and I don't think Clubhouse will ever be able to repeat that boom. Because the need isn't quite there anymore. We're getting out. We're talking to people. We're socializing. People are understanding how better to digitally network now, that they don't maybe need that as much as they did. That was just a really great solution at a really tough time for many people.
So Jack, I have a question for you, which came up. If open to work is the title, but what if open to work is the title, but you expand on that title in the about section or the like? Just your thoughts in general, because I had a conversation with someone, and I go back and forth about it. If you say you're open to work to do a certain thing, I guess it's searchable, or do you just get turned off as a recruiter that it's out there because there's so much noise?
Selfishly, I find it best if the person has in their title and just makes it really clear, this is my job, this is what I do, this is what I'm about. And then in the rest of the profile, it demonstrates, hey, I do X, I do Y, I do Z, I do 1, I do 2 and 3. Because for a recruiter, if a company is reaching out to a recruiter, generally that means they had a hard time finding it themselves because they don't want to pay a fee of 20, 25% of the base annual salary if they don't have to. So they're going to go out to a recruiter, they're paying money for it, and they expect to find like plug and play. They want to find right on target. So then when you're looking, and I'm not saying this is fair, this is right, or this is how it should be, I'm just giving reality. So then when the recruiter goes out there, he or she knows they have to find that like really on target person. So when you look at LinkedIn profiles, you want to make sure, does Rachel have everything that my client is looking for? And is it easy to figure out? If it is, then I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to send her a message. If her phone number is there, I'll call her, I'll text her, whatever, because I'm like, yes, she has it all. If someone doesn't have it, you're on a time crunch, because usually what happens, and I don't want to go too much inside baseball and bore you, but what happens is that generally the company's going to be looking themselves. They're posted probably on LinkedIn, they posted on Indeed, they shared with other recruiters. So it's kind of a race to see who gets that best candidates first to get it in there. So that if you're looking at a profile and you really can't tell what do they do, you're just going to move on because you don't have the time. Because the more time you spend wasting on that, your competition is looking. So you got to just kind of go, all right, next. David doesn't have everything. I can't really figure it out. I'm just going to go next and next and next. And this way, if you find something that's just so clear, it makes your day. It's perfect, because then you're like, great, this person's for it. So Kevin, yeah, I think as simple as that, if it's solely, clearly, concisely spelled out, it's just better for the job seeker because then they'll get found, and it's better for the recruiter because they're like, yeah, all right, this is great for me. This is easier for me.
So Rachel, since you and I are the automation people, do you think if you could, we've talked about automation a lot. Can you just let people know how you can pretty much determine what automation is with a connection request, or maybe some best practices? We talk about it amongst ourselves, but I'd love the audience to get a sense of what you take automation to be and how you react to it.
Sure. So, I'm sure we've all seen these companies that are going to, reach out to you and tell you, I can get you this many leads, and automate your outreach. So simple, so effective, blah blah blah. We're gonna get all these leads in your inbox every single month. Unfortunately, these companies, and I feel like it's whack-a-mole. It's like one disappears and then a new one pops up. Their services are breaking the LinkedIn terms of use. And so people who use them put their account at risk. And Ken and I, we did a little demo. We were doing a little undercover
yes, we did.
to get pitched on one of these recently. And they're very much, your account will be protected. It's fine. There's no risk. We've never, ever had a problem. If you look into their website, deep into their website, and Brenda Meller taught me this, you have to go into the teeny tiny itty bitty fine print to see that they say that they indemnify themselves if something happens to your account. Mm-hmm. If you get put in LinkedIn jail, not their problem. So, generally there's, I think, various levels of automation from, passable to just laughable. Maybe that's a good post right there. Passable. The passable are sort of generic. They're not terrible, but sometimes I do a blog post every year of the bad connection requests, and most of them in my example were automation. Might be like, I see we both work in marketing, would love to connect. Okay, cool. The laughable ones are ones I got last year. One was led with, I see you're part of a paving company. That was a fun one. So
wow.
The point of that is that people are spending money not only on the services, but also a lot of them require you to have Sales Navigator. So you're paying a premium for Sales Navigator. You're paying a premium for these automation tools. And if that's what the product you're getting, you're flushing money down the toilet because the targeting is so bad, and it tends to just turn people off. A lot of people are going to ignore, but people like on this call are going to report you. And then the more reports of blocks you get, you're going to be thrown into LinkedIn jail potentially. So I would love LinkedIn to really take automation a little more seriously. I know that they do. I think, Kevin, you shared like when they do their report every quarter. I mean, it's astounding how many fake and automation accounts they kind of catch before they get into the system, but there's still so much.
So I think
do a better job blocking them coming in.
we have to
get rid of them once they're on.
You have to clarify something. We used what is LinkedIn jail and how do you get out?
Kevin, you want to
know what LinkedIn jail is from our discussion. So does anyone want to talk about that or talk to what that means, just to those that don't know what it is?
Well, I have a friend.
Sure.
It's been in 3 times. No. I mean, there is a lot going on with LinkedIn trying to keep the platform right. The problem with some of these automations is they are just that, they're automated, right? So they have a process that they do that's easy to detect from the other side, but sometimes we as individual members could almost simulate that process and get in trouble. And so what has happened in the last year or so are deep links, right? People linking deep into LinkedIn. That's against the user agreement, believe it or not, and doing it very systematically. I could have a list, and I've done this before in my process. It's one of the things I got caught for and went to jail for, is I had a list of 20 people I always like to look at. I'd click on that list. I'd go and I'd check everything out. I might make a comment. I'd go back to my list. I'd click again. I'd make a comment. That is seen as automation. And technically it is.
And LinkedIn jail is
automation has a big, swing to it. And that is what these pods are doing. When groups are coming together, 50 people say, I will support you, whatever you put out there, and I'll go and I'll click on your comment and I'll write something, and boom. The way they get notified is they get sent an email of 50 links. They click on the link. Great post. Click on the next link. Wonderful post. Click on the next link. Hey, that's a great post. And they're looking like automation too. Because of that, and LinkedIn is targeting these pods so heavily that some of us who are doing basic automation in the sense of keeping ourselves organized, we're getting caught up in that dragnet. The same thing happened to Jeff Young. He went in for using a list that he would click on. LinkedIn, and we've had a lot of discussions with LinkedIn on that. So they're trying to understand that, but at the same time, in their user agreement says you're not allowed to deep link into LinkedIn. And a deep link would be a link to a profile, a link to articles of somebody that somebody writes, whatever it is. That is a deep link because it's technically coming from the outside straight into LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is like, well, you're breaking the rules anyway, but we know you're doing it in a nice way, so we'll let you out of jail, right? But now you've been missing for a day. Maybe even your profile went down, right? Maybe even everything you posted now said LinkedIn member, right? Mm. And people noticed it, and they're like, well, what's he doing wrong? Why is he breaking all the rules? Should I follow him if he's breaking the rules and being put in jail? That was my friend's problem. Right?
But he didn't deserve to go to jail. He was innocent. But
well, absolutely. But he was doing exactly that. He was deep linking, and he was doing it systematically in the sense that he would go to one and he would go to the next one. If you're going to use a list like that, the best thing to do is to go to number 1, then go to number 15, then go to number 2, and then you mix it up the next day. And you spend X amount of time on it. You might make a comment. You might do something else. On the next link that you do, you got to do something different. So think about yourself in the sense that digitally, you can very easily look like automation. So
let me piggyback on this because Alex has asked this question many times. He doesn't accept people outside the U.S. or if they do not have a picture. Is that a smart strategy? To only accept, and my opinion is I accept people from all over as long as I think there's something that we can share and there's a common reason for that. I'm not going to just accept, because I'll get pitched all the time. But if you've had bad experiences, you may want to rethink that. But again, I'd be curious to know from each of the panelists what their feeling is, what their strategy is.
I just want to speak to the picture piece because
Sure.
this is something I'm seeing a lot. I think a lot of people have a incorrect setting on their photos, and so they're not visible to the public. And so what Alex may not be able to see a picture, it doesn't mean there isn't a picture. It means that it's set to connections.
First level, yeah.
And so I would suggest people, and I've posted about this multitude many times. It comes up on Clubhouse almost every single time I facilitate a room in there. People need to check the settings on their profile photo, and majority of almost everybody really needs to have it set to public, so that's
Rachel,
This is social media, right? We're trying to build trust.
Has it changed? Because I see,
or we don't know how to use our settings, we're not going to create the trust at that very first level, which is the visual, right? So it's kind of their fault.
Is this kind of a new thing? Because it seems within, let's say, I'll say the last 6 months or so, more people who don't have photos than before. So is there something else, or is it just my imagination, or it just?
No. I was wondering if it was an old setting, like an old default setting, but it's just, I'd be interested to know if it's an old or new one.
I know that with all the updates that go on, when they do rollouts, major ones, like even like this Bell one, a lot of our settings in LinkedIn disappeared for a while. And there were like 16 of them, and it came back and there's 24 of them. So sometimes when they do a rollout like this, depending on when you joined LinkedIn, what version technically your profile is, not just what version the site is in, so there's double complexity, you could default back to old settings. So you've really got to check your settings at least quarterly to make sure that that stuff's not happening. And I've seen, prominent people that lost that photo outside of the first level because of a rollout went through, settings were defaulted, they never went back and checked. And it's just a system glitch within LinkedIn. Again, this is a very complex site. When they roll out new features, things break. And sometimes that's what breaks, is those default settings that are old settings. So we have to go back and check them.
Yeah, in my experience, people are like, they're shocked that their photo is not visible. Like,
oh yeah,
you're kidding.
Could it be this too? Because I've heard from several women, a number of women, who feel uncomfortable having a photo because creepy guys keep bothering them. Could that be also something?
No, that is 100% true. I have plenty of clients, but I take that approach. You don't go to a networking event with a bag on your head. If you're going to show up on, I'm sorry, but if you're going to show up,
I like that. I'm just picturing that.
There is no trust.
I've used that same line.
There is none. Yeah, you're beautiful, you're ugly, you're somewhere in between. I could care less. I have to see that photo of you. Otherwise, go be on Facebook or something.
Now, what amazes me is LinkedIn, full control of this process, right? When you set up a profile, you should not be able to actually go live on your profile until you put a picture in. And LinkedIn should be able to tell if that's a picture of you or,
hold off some
famous actress or actor, right? Or it's your cat. LinkedIn can tell all of that. They can tell if that's an original photo. So don't go live until they do it. And LinkedIn needs to start taking more of that approach of, we're not going to let you let blank things out. The same thing with an invite, right? You can send a blank invite. Why? Why doesn't LinkedIn require you to write something before you send that invite out? So LinkedIn is in control. A lot of the stuff they really need to say, we want this to be truly a networking site. And we know these are components of networking, communication, visuals, all those things. We should require it. Now, if somebody has a reason not to be on LinkedIn because of stalking and those kind of things, there are alternatives. And sometimes some people just shouldn't be on LinkedIn or any social media if it's that critical. I mean, I understand that.
So one of the questions that just came up, thanks a lot, guys, very much for that, because I know that's extremely important to think about, is the way that our profiles come across. And this is probably more, I would think, for Rachel, Kevin. Actually, company pages appear to be gaining some traction, though still have limited engagement. Are they worth the effort as a valuable resource? Any tips, tricks, or predictions? So does everyone here have a company page?
Several.
Okay, so then go ahead, Rachel.
So I've been won over by the wonderful Michelle Raymond, who hopefully everyone knows about the value of company pages. I actually did a post maybe a year ago, like kind of really talking negatively about them. And while I do think that personal profiles, that's where you build those relationships, but we all have companies that we're promoting. We want to get our branding through loud and clear. And so the company pages can be an effective tool for that. Michelle posted yesterday, she just got newsletter access on her company page. So that is an exciting development and something that I think is showing potentially the direction of where LinkedIn wants to take those if they want to invest in sort of the value of long form content on a company page in a more concerted way. I've definitely been more proactive, inviting people to follow my company page, posting, once a week. I think it has to be a part of a tool. Prior to sort of digging a little deeper into it, I did always recommend, even again, I'm my own business, having a company page, even if you're a company of one, because that branding is so important. So I wouldn't discount the company pages. I think we're going to see some exciting things in the next year.
I know I happen to love using company pages now. I think for me, the challenge is using a company page in addition to my personal strategy at times. Sometimes you have to really know which hat you're putting on. But I welcome, a question like that. I think for me, the biggest challenge is what's the best avenue. And we just brought Brenda in because Brenda and I were actually messaging off to the side and, before this. And Brenda, feel free to chime in. First of all, Kevin looks really great. We were talking about talking about the company pages now also as a starting point. I know, you have you talk a lot also about the way that we talked about connections. And you also talk about the way that women are stalked and the practices or best practices that we guys really should be thinking about more than anything else. And we definitely want to support you. So just, pick it up wherever you'd like.
Well, first of all, hi, David. I don't think I've ever met David and interacted. I feel like I know Rachel and Kevin. We know each other, but we've it's like toddlers parallel play. We've never really interacted, Yeah,
so nice, great seeing you.
Right. So I don't know, I'm going to tackle the creepy guy thing first. And it's like weeds in a garden. I've talked about this before. If you let the weeds grow, they continue to grow. So if you see it happening, if it happens to you, whether it's creepy guys or creepy women, report that message to LinkedIn, first of all, and then block the person. And there's a couple of us that started doing, I know Leah Turner's one. I do this as well. What I do is I grab screen captures and I post them in my Instagram stories of the creepy guys. I block out their names because they're not getting any visibility off of me. But I want to show you guys what actually is happening. And the latest one, it was like a borderline creepy message to me. And then I went on his profile. And I don't think the guys I think they're so stupid. I'm sorry. They're so stupid. They don't realize we can see your activity feed. So every person this guy liked is, it's a certain, you can tell in the photo what I'm talking about. I don't want to call out the women on this, but it's a certain type of photo that they are only interacting with. And, but again, just going back, what's that?
Thirsty. That's what they call them, right?
Just going back to what we can do is we can report them to LinkedIn and then block them. And ladies, if you have a situation where when you see this happening, look and see who the common connections are and maybe message those people and grab a screen capture of what the person has sent you and maybe send it to those people too. And just say, hey, I wanted you to be aware XYZ person is sending messages out like these because, I would like to think a lot of them are fake spam accounts, but some of these are real people. They just don't care. They got to be called out for it. So
sometimes you can figure out chain of command. You may be connected to their boss or their boss's boss.
Yeah.
A nice surprise.
Yeah.
Because they're representing the company when they're on LinkedIn in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have damage that they're doing to their own company. Company should know.
I'm the first to report anybody and everybody, especially if I see it being abused. Somebody's commenting. Maybe it's not a DM, but it's commenting, and but us guys get harassed too. Now, maybe it's Bitcoin or maybe it's other guys or other women, but yeah, there's plenty of.
I think it's your headphones, David.
What was that?
I think it's your headphones. They're attracted to your headphones.
Yeah, sure. But no, there's some photos that you can tell that are very fake. There might be other things in the photo that are fake from women that that message us and harass us too. So absolutely, you have to report, you have to block, and you have to let LinkedIn know, because LinkedIn does take action.
Can I share something?
I've been doing it for a long time, and I'm sorry, I've been doing it for a long time, and I've noticed now LinkedIn is taking mine to the spam bucket and notifying me that there could be content in this message that is inappropriate. It's actually starting to work, and I'm starting to see a couple a week that I don't have to go and hit and block and report. I still go back and check it and report it so that LinkedIn confirms it. And they say that they're learning from us, which makes sense. And so I'm one of these. I don't like when people just send something that says hello, and you can tell the picture that's not a real person, right? And they got nothing on their profile. And I've reported those forever. Now LinkedIn is taking the ones that come in that say hello and already putting them into my spam bucket and saying this is probably inappropriate. So their AI is learning, and we've got to continue to teach it.
Can I share something crazy that happened to me yesterday?
Sure.
So I got tagged in a post by somebody who had sent me a connection request, and then that same person tagged me in a post. It was my post from January of 2021, complete with a carousel that I had created. So this person went a year back into my content, grabbed a post word for word, downloaded a carousel, shared it on their profile, tagged me in it. That was weird. Not like great, if the tag had been at the top with like credit, it would have been different, but it was like at the bottom. Super, super weird. So I sent it to a group chat that I'm in, and one of the people in my group chat commented on it saying, this feels like a bit like plagiarism, and that person pulled the post down. But that's what Ken and I would call chutzpah to do that. Really weird, particularly that it was a year old. That post was from January 2021. So needless to say, that person was reported and blocked for stealing my content. It was super, super strange. I know it happens all the time, but that was the first time it happened to me like that.
Well, it's interesting too, because a lot of the fake profiles that are commenting on your comments, right, to get you to comment back to them, are using that as building their reputation. Because if you comment back and saying, oh, well, thank you for that comment, that was really nice, then somebody goes to their profile, right, then sees that Kenneth, David, Brenda, and Rachel all said, thank you very much. You now have become part of their reputation, and yet they're fake, right? So you got to be real careful, even now in the comments. That's where fakes now are building that fake reputation up, is they're commenting, hoping you'll comment back. Even giving them a reaction will give them some credit on their activity on their profile. They're using that to build themselves up, and you can become a victim of it that victimizes other people. So I'm real careful on comments. If I don't know them, I go check their profile out. And that sometimes actually led to good things too, because they come back and say, hey, you checked out my profile and I appreciate your work. And then you might open up a conversation with the real people, right? And then you just report the fake ones. If they're commenting and they're fake, I'm just going to go right then and there and report it. Be done with it. But I thought that's a good warning to have. And that's probably what they were trying to do, is get you to comment on them and then build their reputation.
This was a real person, though. They had over 100,000. They're doing it too. Like over 100,000 followers. It's just bizarre. Super bizarre.
Yeah.
Really strange.
So one of the things that I also wish they would fix in 2022 is make it a little more easy to do the connections on mobile. Right now, it's very hard unless you realize you can personalize a connection request through 3 dots or something. I've actually gotten to the point that I kind of did a cut and paste of a template, which I then edit. But it just seems to me that I also wish when I got a connection request, it said if it was coming from mobile or desktop, because then that would give me a little bit more of an understanding. Maybe the person didn't realize they could do a connection request that way.
Yeah. Or have LinkedIn fix it, right?
Yes,
You cannot send a connection request without typing something in.
LinkedIn fixes the wrong stuff all the time.
I mean, it's such
I
an
really
easy
don't know
fix.
if you can do it on mobile though. Like I've
They can do it on mobile.
many people go, you can personalize a connection request on mobile. Like they have no idea.
Yeah. Or some of them like not having any idea. Because some people like to just send the blank ones, and they work to a percentage of people.
But I think almost it's a double-edged sword. The fact that they don't know how to do it makes people like ourselves that much more valuable. But at the same time, we all get a lot of the same questions all the time. And it would be nice if LinkedIn, and this is my other pet peeve, I wish LinkedIn had a better way to have help, to search for help, maybe have a list of the issues that we could all find easily. Maybe I'm asking for too much. I don't know.
It is not easy to put a request ticket in. I have to remember all the time, where is that again? I almost need to share that. I need to save that link somewhere because they'll move it somewhere else, or 2 months from now it'll be on a different page or whatever. So
Well, and sometimes the easiest process, if you can't remember the link, is just DM LinkedIn help. And that will actually create a case file. So sometimes that's the easiest way. You just go right into your messaging and LinkedIn help. I got a problem, right?
So I got to bring Brenda in for a question which came up before you were joining us, because Alex had asked it. What's your feeling about connecting with people that are not in the United States and they don't have a profile picture? Do you have a strategy for that? We kind of talked about it amongst ourselves and different thoughts. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are.
So I'm going to start with kind of generally speaking, we can only have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. And I know when I say only, there's a couple people that are like, oh my gosh, I'll never get 30,000 connections. And then there's the other, we're all like nodding our heads because we're like, yeah, because you're probably all over 15,000 if you're nodding your head. And you start to, like in the beginning, I was like kind of accepting I'm like, oh, these are people from around the world connecting with you. This is amazing because it grows your visibility and your reach and all these other things. And then after you get to the 15,000, you start going, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to reach 30,000. And then what you hear from other people that are over 30,000 is now I have to start pulling people off that aren't really good connections for me. Mm-hmm. So my technique is now this. If you go to my profile, I have the creator mode. So I have the follow button as my default. So I don't want to say it's the lazy way, but you could just click on follow. If you follow, you'll see my updates. You won't have the ability to see all my contact info. You won't have the ability to message me unlimited, but you can still see my updates. So it gives you, for a lot of people, it gives you what you're looking for, the ability to see what I'm posting. If you want to connect with me, you got to go to the more button, and then you've got to add a personal note. If you don't add a personal note, I will reply back. Now that I'm over, I think I'm closer to 18 to 19,000 connections and 60,000 followers. So this technique has been very effective at pushing people to follow rather than connect. So I don't hit the limit because there's no limit on followers. You can have like millions and millions, right? So for me, if I see that you're not in my ideal target audience, which for me is traditionally the US, that's where I do most of my business. If you personalize and what you put in there demonstrates, like if someone from the UK is watching and they say, hey, I saw you with Kenneth and David and Kevin and Rachel today, I'll probably accept it. If you don't, I will probably reply back and say, if you go back to my profile and click on the follow button, you'll be able to see my updates. You can also follow my company page for LinkedIn strategy tips. So it's a nice, gentle way of redirecting without saying, no, I don't want to connect with you. Sometimes I get people that will message me back and say, can you accept my invitation? And I will reply back and I will say, Kevin, there's actually a connection limit of 30,000 on LinkedIn. Now, I don't tell Kevin that I don't.
You're not one of them.
Well, I don't say that, but I'm just letting
one
him
day,
know.
Brenda, you'll accept my connection request.
I'm already connected to Kevin, so I'm just calling him out because I am. But I don't normally go, Kenneth, with the no photo overseas as a criteria. I try to redirect. If it looks like a real profile, I'll reply back and say, hey, if you go back to my profile, you can click on follow, because a lot of these people are coming to us by way of the connect button that's offered by LinkedIn, not by visiting our profiles. So that's my philosophy on that.
I add that they have to use my email. Now, if they've read my about section, right, my about summary, they will find my email. Now, I do parse my email, so you can't just cut and paste it. You got to take the spaces out, but that keeps it from getting scraped. but that's an extra little level that somebody then, they've actually at least read your profile to get there, right? So it kind of like is like a secret code in a way, and they see that, and they usually then go look at the profile. If they're really interested, they'll find it. And I don't lose any that way. I think I only just get better ones to then kind of review at that point.
Ken, I'd like to add just this little bit. If you're a job seeker, only staying in your lane is never a good, I'm only going to connect to people in my industry or with people what I do or people at the company. The problem is second degree connections. We all know they're so valuable. That's how we get introduced to people and get potential referrals. But so yes, again, you need to grow your network. And right now, if you only have 100 connections or 100 followers, yes, you do. You want to expand that network, go meet more people, even from different various industries, and use the tips that everybody said, yes, about maybe no picture, or maybe they're in, some country that you might not, find the need to connect with them. But growing your network really means growing the number of connections and followers that will serve you well into the future. You'll be able to help so many others, and people will be able to help you.
David, I'm going to bring you in first, and I apologize for not taking this before, about the idea of ghosting, interviewing, interviewer. And I know it's mainly a job seeker discussion, and unfortunately, the way it's portrayed a lot of times is the ghosting is from the interviewer, the hiring manager.
Sure.
But I'd be curious to get some feedback from everyone here. How prevalent it is, and do you think it's going to change?
Well, I guess I'll go first. No, It's never going to change. And let's come now. There are certain companies and recruiters and hiring managers that do follow up. They do. They just do that. They do follow up. But you got to kind of almost forget about it. You got to apply, forget about it, and just move on to the next one. I hate that. You do. I've been a job seeker. I know this. But on LinkedIn, and I know we kind of touched on this, if you're going to do anything on LinkedIn, you see a job you want to apply for. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll just make one up. Project manager at Amazon. You see that job you want to apply for. Don't apply for it yet. Search Amazon, or excuse me, go to LinkedIn, search for people that work as a project manager at Amazon. Maybe do location to contact people that live in your general area. Message people that are in that role. Why? They know transferable skills and potentially referral bonus for them. I'm happy to provide little scripts that I provide to my clients, but that is such a good best practice for any job seeker on LinkedIn. And it works. And the only reason I know that works, I did it when I was a job seeker because somebody on LinkedIn provided that tip to me. It's not going to work every time, but it'll get you introduced. At least the worst thing that happens, you're connecting to people in the same industries and the same companies and the positions you want anyway. But that is such a best practice that takes such very little time, but you could gain so much from that.
So I got to ask Rachel a question now from a business side, because I'm going to go back to, I get pitched a lot too, like you do. So if I'm interested in your services and I send you a connection request and it's a general connection request and I think it's something good, how do you respond to someone who pitches you right away after that? Because I can't tell you how many times I connect to someone innocently and the next thing I know I get, well, can I have 15 minutes to talk about this or 30 minutes to talk about this or this and this and this? Do you reply back at that time? Do you block people or do you use it as a best practice? I'd be curious to know.
It depends on my mood. So sometimes I might get a little snarky with someone. If anyone's been on the receiving end, just know it's probably because I was in a snarky mood that day. I got one. I have one in my inbox today that I was considering responding to in that regard, which was like, do you send this message to everyone you connect to? I wish people wouldn't do that. I really, really wish they wouldn't. I had a whole back and forth with, this wasn't through InMail with a financial planner last year, because I had added being a lead moderator for thought leadership branding under my experience, and that triggered his automation to send me a message that was like, congratulations on your new position, blah, 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 everything that you would ever want to know about me as a certified financial planner. Can we talk? And we had a whole back and forth about automation. It was great. It was, I was like, I'm going to win this guy over. 6 months later, I added something else under my experience, and I got the same gosh darn message from that person. So, when we try to just pitch people right away, I just think it just sets such a bad impression. I would never do business with somebody that pitched me right away, because like we talked about, if we're at a networking event, you don't walk up and be like, hi, David, I'm Rachel Simon. I write LinkedIn profiles and do blah, 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 blah. You say, hey, this is a cool restaurant. Have you ever been here before? How long have you lived in whatever city we're in? You make small talk, you get to know somebody. And then the conversation opens up to professional topics. So just send a thanks for connecting, or refer to, hey, I really liked your post about XYZ, or, oh, I also went to this college. I mean, just keep it simple, but I hate getting pitched. It's so annoying. Boo. Rant over.
I now send them a link to my most current post and ask them to engage. I seriously, that's what I do now. I literally do, and then they drop off. I've been doing that for like 3 weeks now, just because I know there's no point in commenting. And I used to go back and forth with Bitcoin people all the time. I would try to sell them, hey, you just need a better, you need a better strategy. Hey, hire me. But now I just share a link to my post, and then they go away.
That's good. Maybe I'll write a post about why you shouldn't pitch in the initial message, and then I'm just gonna I'll use that as my constant. Like, here, refer to this post, please.
I think one of the things which I also suggest people think about doing, I know Rachel and I did it. We went undercover to find out about how automation works. I recommend people go to a seminar from iSIMS or some ATS system and learn about the system. Do some undercover work of your own. Anyone can join these. Instead of taking our word for it, go to the company themselves and ask questions. I mean, I think there's this mindset that we don't get involved in some areas. Why not? The only way I can understand automation is to know why they do it, and so I can kind of speak out against it. And it's the same thing from a job seeker. Go to a thing from Taleo or iSIMS or someone like that. Get invited, see what they talk about, ask questions as though you're a recruiter or something else, because you're going to learn more about the system that way. You guys agree with that?
Absolutely. And most of those ATSs that everybody talks about over there, you can get a trial membership. I've had trial membership in the top 30 for several years, and you can go in there and you can play with them. So you can go, well, why doesn't my resume load right? And why do I have to always mix these things around? And it will actually tell you what's going on in that application. And you'll see it from the other side, and you can adjust and reapply and do all that stuff yourself, because you're running your own little test program. So you don't have to believe anybody. That stuff's there. It's available. It's downloadable. And all you have to do is say that you're a company of one, and there's not a single salesperson there is going to call you. But the process is automated, right? So you're able to kind of get it, see it, try it, and you don't have to believe anybody else. But I think it's a fantastic way to go. And the same thing with automation. The other thing with anybody who pitches you automation on LinkedIn, you can go to LinkedIn Marketing's page, and they have a approved vendors that is any plugin app that is approved to automate on LinkedIn. And believe it or not, there are some that are approved to automate on LinkedIn. They're listed. If they're not in the list, you're at potential violation of the user agreement and can get kicked out for using that product if they're not on the list. Things like Hootsuite, right? People know about Hootsuite. You can schedule your posts. It's automated. It does log in as you, believe it or not, which is against the URL, except the fact that they've got the permission of LinkedIn. And LinkedIn gave them that permission because they know that Hootsuite is not scraping data like most of the automation companies. They want you to pay basically to get your login so that they can do nefarious things within LinkedIn. And that's why LinkedIn doesn't like them. That's how they make their big money. They're not making it on you paying them $9 a month. They're making it on going in there, collecting your network, collecting who their second degree, who their third degree is, and then continuing that on through the process so they can basically own LinkedIn's database.
The other thing is, I would recommend people go to the LinkedIn Talent Solutions because they have quarterly product updates.
Mhm.
And it's not just for the updates themselves, but you can see who's attended the event when they create the event, and you can connect with them as well. I mean, same with that. And I know, Kevin, you and I probably look more at the engineering blog because we're a little bit nerdy about that, but it's interesting to see what they're doing. The more that we know, the more that we can help everyone else. But the secret sauce that we have is that we're just kind of into LinkedIn 24/7. But a lot of what we have out there, we gain just from learning like everyone else. For sure.
I have a question. I'm
Sure.
curious what everyone thinks. Kind of to what, and the point Jack was making earlier in the conversation about, you putting so much time and energy into these very, well thought out content pieces that get low visibility. I'm a little worried in the coming year that we're going to see, and no offense to the TikTokers out there, but like people dancing on LinkedIn. I don't really want to see people dancing. I know TikTok's more than dancing. I'm not technically allowed to be on TikTok per my 14-year-old daughter. But I'm concerned we're going to see an increase in kind of fluffy content. I think that lighthearted content has a place 100%, but I'm afraid that we're going to see a lot of it. I don't know. What do y'all think?
Oh, there's a lot now.
There is.
Oh, yes.
But I think I'm afraid it's going to get worse. And if I see one more poll about how old you were when you got your first job, or what time you wake up in the morning, I am done with those polls.
Well, what they should do, and someone brought it up in the chat, is the mobile. I mean, this is just mobile. I don't want to see TikTok type stuff on my desktop. I don't want to see it on my laptop. And there's got to be a way. They should be differentiated. They should be for different reasons, or even if there's a separate app or something that LinkedIn can use just for that, because we're now multi-generations on this platform. I mean, this platform's been around 20-something, almost 20 years now. So the way it evolved to now, people like us have been on for a while, and you have people just starting out who don't know or don't get the way it was before. This is how they network. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to be like the Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace. I wrote a post, "Get off my lawn," but that's kind of how I feel at times.
Old man yelling at cloud.
Yes, right, exactly.
Same thing, but I think I embraced it when I embraced hashtags, because a couple years ago I'm like, who uses hashtags? Only Kim Kardashian, movie stars, right? Yes, as other they're going to post what they want to post, and that's okay for them. And we might not want to see it, but then that's okay, because they'll have an audience that occasionally wants to see it. So the good news is we can.
I guess my question is LinkedIn going to push that content out because they're trying to attract a younger audience, as they should, because again, Gen Z is, the youngest generation in the workforce. It's more that algorithm thing, right? Kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Kevin. I think I totally agree with you, David, that people generationally are going to post what resonates with them. But knowing what we know about LinkedIn, will they give that content a lot more visibility because they want to attract that audience? And then the content, the deep content like that Jack is creating, that we're creating, is going to kind of get a little bit less,
Sure.
I think they're going to give more control to the member. What do you want to see? And I think that's going to be a push because of the legislation that's going on right now. But just the fact that, you can try to automate something, but then you can also ask your customer, what do you want? And that's a lot easier than automation, believe it or not. You can say, what are these things? And one of the things might be there's a list of types of video. TikTok, I'm going to take that off because I don't want TikTok videos. Or, I don't want videos at all. Take it off my list. I think they're going to give more control, because in giving control and making the member happy, what do you get out of a member that's happy?
More eyeball time.
Yeah, more time, more engagement. I love LinkedIn because it always gives me what I want, not what they thought I wanted. And we found out that they don't really think the same way we all do. because we all have junk in our feed, and things like stuff like that Jack writes, I want to see it, and I don't always see it, and I have to go dig it up, right? That shouldn't happen. So I think LinkedIn is getting smarter, is going to spend a little less on doing the AI on this side of the equation, and is going to give us more control, because that's the way legislation's going anyway, and they might as well do it. Then they'll spend their time on AI doing other things like, fighting automation, fighting fake profiles, those kind of things. And I think that's a natural evolution.
I think part of it is that most of the people on LinkedIn are of the generation of TikTok and the like, and there aren't a lot of people at LinkedIn of our generation, so they're doing what they think everyone wants. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I've reached out to LinkedIn a couple of times. You need to have people of our age there to guide this, because we understand it differently. It's not a good or bad. It's just understand why we feel the way we do, and be that bridge to others. Because I think that's a big part of it. Honestly, it's just a little bit of a miscommunication between the generations.
I think they know we're not going anywhere. And
yeah, you don't want to alienate.
Right?
You don't want to alienate like the senior level executives who are pretty dependent upon LinkedIn. It'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah,
sort of
definitely.
And that has changed over the years. I remember when LinkedIn started out, and I joined like 2005, you could connect with almost any CEO that was on LinkedIn. You could get them to connect with you. Now, if they're even showing up on LinkedIn anymore, right? They might have a profile. Somebody else is managing it and not managing it well, but they don't really connect anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a thing that has evolved, and it's because they're not getting out of the platform what they once did. And so I think LinkedIn has to start recognizing that.
I think that's why the bell is a good first start, because Rachel, you have the bell on your name, on your profile.
Yes, I know, but I don't see it on anybody's.
On nobody's?
No,
because some people don't have a bell. Some
yet,
people don't have a bell. Okay.
Yeah. If you don't have it yet, you can't see it. If you have it, you can see it on everybody else's but your own.
But I do have it, because I've had a few people. Thank you for telling me. I know it's on my profile, but when I go to people who I know have it, I can't see it on there.
Yeah, because you don't have the rollout yet.
But
so
it's so
Kevin,
we'll see it.
Kevin, what is the bell?
The bell is actually it's called subscribe. What is it? Subscribe alert. And basically what it is it gives you control over your feed and notification. And most people don't realize it is feed and notification. They think it's just notification because they'll see notification. They won't see it in your feed, but your feed is a funnel, right? I always think of it like a one-armed bandit slot machine. When you pull the handle, it's going, shh, that's your feed, and it stops on something and you see it, but you didn't see all the other stuff that went by. That's what the notification is to tell you is, hey, that thing you wanted to know about just went by, right? So go click on the notification. It'll take it and put it back in your feed for you. So you got another chance. That is, and that's what's being pushed with this bubble filter act right now in Congress. That's going to become law, hopefully in the next couple of months. That gives back control to the members of what they see, because LinkedIn is, in all essence, a news production site. And if they control what news you read, they now will have to give you the option to say, I don't want to be controlled. I want to find my own stuff. And that's what the bell is. It's the ability to select who you want to see. Now, there is somewhat just natural restrictions in it. If I go and I bell 10,000 people, I'm not going to be able to read my feed, right? If I bell 10 people, I will see a really nice, clean feed of 10 people. And I might see some things that LinkedIn throws in anyway, right? Popular stuff. But I have more control. So to me, it'll be interesting to see, where does that control level break down? Is it 100? Is it 50? I'm going to target, when I get it, I'm going to probably target 50. And I think that's what I would like to see in my feed and see how it goes. But
telling people to follow the bell, almost more important than anything, because to be honest, now I get people that respond in seconds when I post something. Literally seconds, because they're on their phone, they're active too. So no, the bell, that's going to be a great strategy that I'm going to start implementing, telling people, hey, click on the bell.
Do you
Ring
think
my
it
bell.
works well as far as on the user side? So, like people that you've belled, I don't know what the rate, we haven't rung their belled. Do the notifications seem to work well?
Well, there was a 3-week period where they didn't, and that was
Okay.
because of the settings that disappeared. The on LinkedIn settings, they disappeared. There were 16 of them. They completely disappeared.
Yeah.
They came back with 24 of them.
Mm,
During that time frame, Bell didn't function appropriately. It functioned kind of halfway.
okay. I'll have to check all those settings because I had no setting access when that happened.
Yeah, so it should be back now. They
So
fixed that. And
So do you guys have any final thoughts? Because I want to wrap things up soon that you want to talk about, or anything you want to bring out to the community? Because I really appreciate the three of you. I appreciate Jack who came in for a while. I appreciate Brenda who stopped in. And I definitely appreciate all of you on the call listening, and we'll be watching the recording. Anything else you'd all like to add or say to anyone?
I'll just leave my final sort of thought for the year, which is, 2021 for a lot of LinkedIn users, and I put myself in that category, I think was transformational in that it was a year that really emphasized relationship building. I do credit Clubhouse as a really nice partner with LinkedIn for that reason, which is why I sort of haven't given up the ghost on Clubhouse yet. I still think there's a lot of value there. I'm excited to see where this year goes. I think that kind of building on the value of those relationships is going to be really key and important, and kind of that continued development of putting your personality and sort of your value front and center and I know people, the word authentic, but in a way where, like, Kevin and I had the opportunity to get together in person in the fall, and we already knew each other. I mean,
Yep.
it was great.
No surprises, so that was cool.
Right. So when you build those relationships on here and you have the ability to meet people in person or get on a Zoom call, them. You're the same. It's no surprises. You are who you are. So I really want to kind of focus on that for the year ahead, and just that we should be having fun. If we're not having fun on LinkedIn, it's time for a new strategy.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Kevin?
I just remind people you don't have to try every single feature all the time. Find what works for you. There's plenty of stuff out there, but you can't do everything, right? Find what works with you, and know that this is really about networking, getting to know people. And you want to take that. The only way you can really do that, much like we did, Rachel, is you take it offline at some point, right? Get it into phone calls, get it into video conferencing, get it into an actual meeting. That's where the real value of LinkedIn has always been and always will be. And I just stress people, that's the feature you should be working on, right? The connectivity. Yeah.
David, what about you?
Totally agree, Kevin, Rachel. Totally agree with what you two said. So if you want to get a lot out of LinkedIn, you have to do what I did when I first started and what I do today. You engage more than you worry about your own crap. I mean, your own post and whatever. You have to engage more, and that's where the fun is anyway. That's where you learn that you want to follow Ken. You want to follow this person. You want to, again, that's where you learn. So engage, and actually not nice post, but engage with the content that you like, whether it's a hashtag you follow or a business you follow or whomever. Mm-hmm. But engage, because if you do anything on LinkedIn and you just devote maybe 20 minutes a day to engaging, then taking the steps that Kevin and Rachel said, you will build those meaningful relationships.
Yeah. And focus on that second and third level too.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tendency to engage on first level, right? We all know each other. How much engagement can we give each other, right? It's good to do, but we also need to remember second and third, right? Let's get it out there even farther. Let's make some new friends.
Well, we definitely have to circle back and see how we did later on this year with everything that's going on. I want to thank my panel today. I want to thank everyone here listening and on the recording. Have a great day. We're getting back into the swing of things 2022. Stay safe, because who knows what the future is going to be. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
See you.